I can always do something with red noses, and I do have them for you. And I'm going to, for those of you who don't know my history, I've been giving away red noses for a long time. And I had a friend who was in clown college at Schenectady Community College. And she was a friend of my wife, and she came in the kitchen one Saturday morning, and she looked at me, and I can be a little bit of a hard case type A person. And she gave me a red nose, and she said, put this on, because there's no way you can take yourself too seriously in a red nose. So I did, and I had a really good time looking at myself and laughing in the mirror. And you may think I look completely ridiculous, and that's my intent. So a couple of weeks later, I was doing some carol singing at an office party, and I got a lot of people up as volunteers to do, you know, Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donder and Blitzen, and right at Blitzen, before I did, and do you recall the most famous reindeer of all, I plunked the first volunteer with a red nose. And everybody went, ooh, and I realized that if I had had a bucket of them, I could have sprinkled a little joy through the whole place. So I immediately went out and began to buy them wholesale. And I travel with them on planes, and I pull them out of my pocket. And for a while I wasn't paying cash for drinks. I was just, you know, bartering with the stewards and the stewardesses for red noses. And then finally the Southwest Airlines people, I traveled a lot consulting, they told me I had to pay cash. They weren't going to go through this anymore, that I just had. And so I have this pattern of giving noses to people, and probably one of the best nose stories I can think of is I have a friend who used to, I can use his name, it's not a breach of confidentiality because he's a good friend. Dave Schweizer used to run the Funston Lumber Company, and he's now retired. And he had prostate cancer. So I was aware of that at church, and I gave him some red noses, and I said, you know, I'd send you flowers, but it's kind of a guy thing, but here, you know, you may find use for these. And then in the course of life, things get away. I did write him a couple notes. I talked to him on the phone. And I'm in the lumber yard one day, in the shop, paying for some furring strip or something I picked up. And he's at the cash register. And I says, hey, Schweizer, I never found out, what did you do with my nose? He says, oh, I never told you that story. And he leans over the register. He says, well, you know, Carol's kind of an artist. I says, yeah. He says, well, on my last trip, they put you in that little Johnny coat. You know, they tattoo you with all these things so they get the right shot down so your body looks a little really wild. So I said, oh, I've been overexposed. Get the doctor. And I had the nose on. And the radiologist came in, and he was a little indignant because they don't like to get bothered by jokes like this. And so he says, okay, get him ready. And so the tech went to put me in my place. And as they flipped up the Johnny coat to expose the target, Carol had written in a magic marker, a target. And right in the middle of the target was a red nose as the bullseye. And above that, she'd written, that's all, folks. So and everybody exploded in laughter, including people in the waiting room, because they'd kind of been put onto it by Carol, and that's what was going on. And, you know, it was one of the nicest little bits of laughter I had through my whole experience. And fortunately, we can all laugh about it now. Now, I'll tell you, he told that story, and there must have been 20 people standing around the register, and they were all laughing and sharing the good feeling of him being restored. And in some respects, the moment would have never happened if it hadn't been for his wife gluing one of my noses on his rear end.